Do you want to price your home so that it sells for top dollar without hiring a real estate agent? Over the next 5 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the exact framework that I use to determine the optimal price for a home. This approach has put thousands of dollars more in my client's pocket versus the old approach of relying on just a couple of comparables or believing a Zestimate. I'm also going to send you my free Price Like a Pro program, which includes my custom calculator and videos where I walk you through exactly how to use and calculate all of these different items I'm going to talk about today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Wendy Atherton. I'm the owner and founder of Home Partners Marketing, where I work exclusively with for sale by owners to help them market and sell their own homes without an agent. I've generated thousands of buyers online for properties, and I'm an expert at marketing homes. In my videos, you'll get at least one strategy that you can use to implement to sell your home for top dollar. Over the next 5 minutes, I'm going to walk you through my exact framework to determine the optimal price for your home. So let's go ahead and get started, okay? So first bullet point number 1, go ahead and figure out what your current tax assessed value is. So it's always good to know what that number looks like. Now, in some markets, tax assessments happen more frequently than others. So for example, where I live, our entire county just had a completely new tax assessment done. That happens here every 4 years. So the tax assessed value on properties right now is obviously going to be a little bit lower typically than what market value is, but it's a good benchmark to have. So, obviously you should be able to sell your home above tax assessed value in pretty much any market. So you want to get that number. So first step, figure out your tax assessed value. Now, if your tax assessed value is a few years old, say it's been, 2 years ago since you had a tax assessment, then we want to potentially adjust that number to make it more current. So, just simply, let's say your tax assessed value is $200,000, and let's say over the past 2 years, in your area, homes appreciated 30%. Then I would take your $200,000 and I would increase it by 30%, and that should probably give you a pretty good range of what the tax assessed value would be at today's current appreciation based on appreciation levels that we've seen. So, first step, you want to get that tax assessed value. Second is you're going to want to pull comparables that have sold to your home in your area. Okay, so this is where sometimes this can trip people up a little bit, and there's a lot of different ways to do this. Real estate agents have different approaches, and appraisers can sometimes obviously have a different perspective as well. So as a general rule of thumb, you want to look at homes that are within probably 15% of your size. So if you've got a 3,000 square foot home, then I would want to look at homes that are 15% smaller than yours up to 15% bigger than yours. Okay, so you don't want to take your 3,000 square foot home and compare it to homes that are 1,000 square feet, or 5,000 square feet, right? So that's step 1. Homes that are comparable to yours in terms of size. Now, one thing that you have to be really aware of is this look back period. So typically 6 months, general rule of thumb. Now I say that, and I also comment because if you're in a market that's changing rapidly either direction, something that sold 6 months ago might be quite different than what is going on the market right now. So you have to take that with a little bit of a grain, right? So in my area, I would rather have homes, I would probably rather go out a little bit further and not have to go back as far because our market has really been shifting quite a bit here. So, in terms of radius, I might look at homes, within 15% of my home. And if I'm in an area where within 5 miles, it's a pretty comparable area, I may go, 2, 3, 4 miles out over the last 3 months. Okay. And so I'm looking for as close as I can get to my house. Okay. So then how do you do that? So there's a couple of ways you can get this data. One, if there is an agent that you have any kind of a relationship with, you could ask them just to run you an export of homes using that criteria. So give me all the homes that have closed in the last 6 months or 90 days within X miles of my house, within 15% of my size. Okay. You can also accomplish this pretty well on Zillow. And in my training, Price Like a Pro, I show you how to do this. But generally, you're going to go to Zillow and you're going to do a search for homes that have sold and homes that are on the market. I like to look at both. So I want to see active homes. What am I competing against, right? Because that's who you're going to compete against. And what is sold, already closed. So I'm going to get my average pricing on active homes, and I'm going to get my average pricing on closed homes. If my average on active homes is starting to fall compared to my closed comps, then that might be indicative that we are in a shifting market, and you may want to weigh more heavily on your active comps than on your closed comps, if that makes sense, right? So if your closed comps are saying, I'm just going to say $100 price per square foot, and your closed comps are showing you $97 or $98 price per square foot, you might want to lean more towards the 98 on your active comps, okay? So we've gotten our tax assessed value. We've potentially adjusted it if it's an old assessment. We've gotten our comparables. We've looked at those. And so now what are we going to do? So now we're going to make some adjustments. And so this can be more complicated or not, depending on your property. All right. So let's just say you're in a subdivision and it's all the same builder, and there's, quite a few homes that have turned over, and, your finishings are pretty comparable to 6 houses that have sold in your neighborhood. Well, you're probably not going to need to do much of an adjustment, right? You're going to look at your active comps, you're going to look at your closed comps, and, you're going to pretty confidently say that the range is, within, let's just say, $220 to $225 per square foot. And your house is going to fall somewhere in that range based on the size. And that's your number. And that's a pretty credible way to look at it. Okay. If you have a home that is a little bit more unique, or you don't have a lot of comparables, or there's a lot of variation around you, then we need to make adjustments. And so we're looking at things like, lot size. We're looking at finishes. We're looking at the age of your systems. So, if house down the street sold for $400,000, and it had a bigger lot, brand new roof, brand new HVAC system, they had remodeled and updated the flooring, then that home is obviously worth more than a home that doesn't have those things. So then you've got to make an adjustment off of that. So what would that home that sold, what would it have sold for if it had been more like your home, right? Well, they wouldn't have gotten as much money, obviously, because they wouldn't have had a new roof, they wouldn't have had a new HVAC system, and they would have had floors like yours, let's just say. So you're going to take that $400,000 house and you're going to make adjustments for it based on the cost of those items. And then you're going to reforecast what that home would have sold for. Okay. Again, I go through all of this in my Price Like a Pro program. So, and I will send that to you. Just drop me a comment below and I'll get that over to you. The next and real final piece of all this. So now you have these different data points, right? You have your tax assessed value, you've got your active comps, you've got your closed comps, you've got your adjustments that you're looking at. And so now you have all these sort of data points, right? And so typically at this point, it's starting to kind of emerge, right? Like looking at all these things, your house is probably worth between $470,000 and $480,000. Let's just say, for example, you're kind of in that zone. So where should you price it is the next question. So one thing to think about is you want to think about how buyers think, and how buyers think is typically in ranges. So, a buyer goes on Zillow or a buyer goes on a website, a buyer reaches out to their real estate agent and says, send me everything that's up to $475, or send me everything up to $500. They don't typically operate in unusual numbers, right? So they're not going to say, well, Don't send me anything over 470. Like that would be weird, right? So like if you're on the edge, like if you think the house could be worth 480 or 476 or 477, price the house at 475, right? So you want to be capturing people that are in those bands. And if you price your home just over, like if you price your home at 477 and somebody, got buyers that have a 475 max, they're not even going to see your house come up. It's not even going to pop, right? Not even going to pop on their search criteria. So that's why I say, think like a buyer and make sure that you're optimizing yourself in that range, right? Like you want to appear to be the best value for the other homes that you're competing against. So that's just something to keep in mind. Again, drop me a comment below. I will send you my detailed free Price Like a Pro program. It includes all the calculators where you literally just key these things in that we just talked about. And it'll also go through a video training on exactly how to pull your comps. And I show you how to make those adjustments so that you can come up to the best possible number. Hope this video helps. Thanks.